Well, hello. It's Thursday, 2:30. That means it's time for the infant feeding Facebook Live. Hopefully there'll be some people joining me. I put an appeal out last week saying don't leave me on my own. Naomi's off for a bit. She's having a break, a well-earned break. She's probably pedaling her way around the UK at the moment. But, I can see some names coming up now. Thank you for not leaving me on my own. So I shall see how many we get up, and I hope you've got lots of questions lined up to ask this week. I had a busy clinic this morning, and we've seen people on the wards in a bit. My colleague Sarah's in today as well. She's on the wards, I've been on the wards today as well. So I can see a few of you appearing. Nice to see you. So as I said right at the first, when it first came up, I'm Alex. I'm from the infant feeding team. This is all about infant feeding, anything to do with feeding, early days, sort of just what's going on in that period of time. Sleep we talk about moving on to solid foods at 6 months, weaning if that's what you want to do. Is here to support you with whatever you're doing feeding wise. That your choice totally and utterly. As a trust, we're here to support all mothers in their choice of feeding. So hopefully we'll get a nice amount of people watching, and we'll get a load of nice questions. So there's been a bit of a recurrent theme this morning on in the breastfeeding clinic, talking about different breast shapes. We none of us are identical. We all have different breasts. We all, and in fact, most of us don't even have identical breasts on either side. Most of us are not symmetrical. Most of us have breasts that are what we call asymmetrical, because they don't match. They're not exactly the same. So that's one of the things that came up this morning. So I brought a bag of knitted breasts to have a chat about. So we've got this bag, a whacking great bag of knitted breasts that we use for teaching people how to do hand expressing, teaching staff how to teach mothers how to hand express. And they are fabulous because they are very much like the women in this world, because they vary so much. So we might go from this one through to this one. So if you can see, if I put them side on, you can see a really big difference. You can see this one's got a very big nipple and this one's got a very small nipple. Obviously the breast size is different too, but you could transpose them, and they could have, this one could have, sort of a smaller nipple or an inverted nipple, and this one could have a very big nipple even though it's a small breast. So they vary tremendously. And for those that maybe haven't so much time chatting, joining us on these sessions, or much time about their breasts, just to remind you, you've got the main body of your breast, you've got what we call your areola, which is the darker area, and during your pregnancy, that's going to get darker. So those of you out there who are pregnant at the moment, you've probably noticed it getting darker. So whatever your starting point is, it'll get darker from there. So we all vary tremendously. And then you have the nipple, so the nipple on the end. And as I said, again, that varies. So you might have just a little one, a slightly bigger one, or a very big one. Now, babies are born with no preconceived ideas of what they're being born to. So they don't come into this world thinking, my mum's going to have a nipple that looks like this, for instance. They don't know that. They're going to deal with whatever they've got. They're going to be put to you skin to skin, and we talk to you all about how important that first skin to skin is. That first skin to skin is when your baby learns all about you. They learn about your anatomy. They learn about your smell, which is so important. Imagine that grounding of the smell of you. That's going to be their home for them. That's what they're going to make them feel comfortable. I liken it to when you go home from the hospital. If you have your baby in hospital, you go home, walk in your front door, and you go, oh, so nice to be home. And your baby, every time you put your baby skin to skin, they go, so nice to be home. They love it. So that time that you spend when your baby is born, skin to skin, and hopefully uninterrupted, i.e. baby not moved until after the first feed, they're going to learn what your breast is like, what sort of breast you have, and what they've got to deal with, because they've got no idea what they're being born to, and they are hardwired to have a go at breastfeeding at that point in time. And that's when they've attached to the breast. That's like a priming feed, and they go, that's what it's all about. Now, some babies do struggle, and we've had clinics today, we've had a couple of babies where they have struggled, the babies have struggled, and it might be partly down to the maternal anatomy, it might be down to what they're like, but we can't say that for certain. But we have ways of helping with that. So the main thing is to think about, and we talk about on this so often, establishing your milk supply. So secure your milk supply. If your baby is struggling to attach to the breast and you're having problems with feeding, make sure you have a milk supply, because at the end of that we can get babies feeding one way or another. So we had 2 babies this morning who were struggling to feed but now feeding. Now, you know, there are ways and means of helping babies to feed, but you know, it may not be directly at the breast. We might use a nipple shield if that's appropriate, but we would have tried everything else before we got that far. And that's what we're here for, is to support you. I'm just going to look, because I know I can see that a few messages have come up. I'm going to move my bag of breasts out of the way a bit and just see what's come up. So, perfect. I've had a few questions already. So I'm going to start with Jade. Jade said her baby's 9 weeks old, and the last couple of weeks I've been getting shooting, stabbing pains in my breast and my nipple in between feeding. It doesn't happen whilst feeding, just in between. Is this normal? Jade, is your baby removing your milk effectively? Because sometimes that can be that the baby's gone on the breast and the breast is expecting to be relieved, have the milk removed well, and maybe that hasn't happened quite so well. I'm going to go to my go-to answer. Have a think about getting someone to look at your positioning attachment, or do it yourself. Make sure your baby is still coming on in an asymmetrical attachment. So thinking about, I'll move that, thinking about starting nose to nipple, allowing the head to tip back so that the baby then comes on with their chin hitting the breast first down here, and the upper lip just skimming the nipple. And what we find sometimes is, and I know I've mentioned it before, I'm just going to reach another doll. What we find sometimes is that when you start breastfeeding, and if it was all going fine then, you've got your little baby and they're feeding like this. You can see me, I'll sit up, you're feeding like this, okay? And then they've grown and you hold them the same way. So you can see the difference. Little baby, bigger baby. This baby's now being held the same way, but actually what we want that baby to do is to come much further round. So the baby that you had here has grown lots. The bigger baby needs to come in and under your arm like this. Tuck them in. Make sure that that relationship is still the same, that they're going to start nose to nipple, they're going to tip their head back, and they're going to come on with a chin leading. So this is positioning, and so the key parts of positioning and attachment. And much as it sounds like it's too simple to be causing the problem, it could very well be causing the problem. So it may be worth having a look, Jade. Just have a look at what you're doing. Have you allowed for the fact that your baby is now 9 weeks old? Have you brought your baby round you? I was describing it to a mum as like holding a set of bagpipes. So getting the baby tucked in, get your elbow over that baby and really tuck them in, because that allows your baby to come on at the breast like this. What we don't want is a baby coming to the breast like this. So if they come on like this, the chin will lead. They're going to open their mouths nice and wide and they're going to go on. So if you imagine the baby straight on, they're going to go, I don't need to open my mouth very wide, like this. But if they're going, the nipple's higher, then they're going to come on and they're going to go, oh, I have to open my mouth. They go and open their mouth much wider. So that's the difference of here or here. So it's thinking about head tip back, big wide mouth, nipple right at the top of the mouth. So have a peek and see what you're doing. If that doesn't resolve it yourself, maybe even get someone to film what you're doing, because sometimes that really helps to see. It's very difficult to be self-aware of what you're doing. Anyone else who does things like, fitness classes, like, I like doing fitness classes. Sometimes you're not self-aware of when you're not doing it right. If you're doing weights like clean and press or something, if you do body pump or anything like that, then sometimes you're not self-aware, and actually that's why mirrors are useful. So it's really good to get maybe someone else film you what you're doing, and you'll see, it's things like, sometimes that will show to a mum that they're moving their breast when they're bringing the baby on, and that can make a big difference. So Jade, I would suggest, think about positioning attachment. Allow for the fact that your baby is now 9 weeks old and probably an awful lot bigger. Make sure that you're still starting nose to nipple. Right, just come straight back already. So thank you. We're seeing the health visitor next week. We'll get her to check what I'm doing right, doing it right. Perfect. But in the meantime, you can do a lot yourself. Have a peek yourself, Jade, and see what's going on. But well done, 9 weeks, a fantastic start for you and your baby. Really great. And as you know, anyone who's listening, breastfeeding is fantastic for both mother and baby. It protects you against 2 forms of cancer. It protects you against osteoporosis, diabetes, cardiac disease, and obesity and and all those things. breastfeeding. So, you know, from that point of view, there is so much to be that's great for you and your baby. We often talk about why is breastfeeding important for the baby, but actually it's really important for mums too. Charlotte's popped up. Hello Charlotte, our frequent flyer, our regular visitor. She's put, hi Alex, hope your day is going well and not too busy. Alicia is asleep at the moment and I'm getting things ready as me and Alicia are going to Devon for Easter with my mum. And she also I have a new job. Congratulations. Well done Charlotte. That'll be very exciting. Have a lovely time in Devon. It's one of my favourite places. So, okay ladies and gents, I can see quite a few watching. Have a think about those questions, because be great to keep me not having to do or coming up with all the things. It's lovely to respond to what you want. So, you know, the whole thing about these sessions, they've been going now for nearly 2 years. It's April we started them in 2020 during the lockdown when nobody was getting breastfeeding support. So we started doing these sessions because it gave people an opportunity to put their questions to us when there was so little access to breastfeeding support or any infant feeding support. So, you know, we're here to support with parents who are formula feeding as well. So, you know, this is here to give you that support. So carrying on the theme of the breasts, is thinking about, you know, how you would cope with a bigger nipple. So I've mentioned about the baby coming on. So if you've got let me find a nice smaller one. Oh, there's a smaller one, that one. So thinking about where that baby's going on. So I've been talking about this asymmetrical attachment. So if you think about this being the mouth, so this is the lower lip and the upper lip, the baby comes on and hits down here, and the upper lip just skims the nipple. Now you can see that that's then going to go right to the back of the mouth. So this is the back of the mouth here. This is like a cushion. This is the soft palate. So if you take your tongue back in your mouth, you can feel your soft palate. That's where your nipple needs to be. If the nipple is back against the soft palate, the baby doesn't hurt you. And the baby will milk the breast really well, and they will drive the milk supply. If the nipple goes into the middle of the mouth, you've got a hard palate and a tongue. This is what happens, and you can see why mothers get so sore, and why when the baby comes off it's misshapen. The nipple might be white, it might be misshapen, it might look like a new lipstick, for instance, and that's what we don't want. So thinking about making sure the baby comes on, head back, so chin leading, bottom lip hits down here, upper lip skims the nipple. Now if we think about something a little bit bigger, we still want to be doing that. So we still want that baby to come on. So they're going to come on here, if you see, and that's going to get as much of this nipple in their mouth as possible, because we need to still get it from below. So they're going to come up onto the breast like this. They get the nipple to the back of the mouth. If it went straight into the middle of the mouth, that mother is going to be so sore. Not only is the mother sore, she's going to the baby's not going to get much milk, because you can see the baby's not got much in its mouth at all. You can really see that. And you can imagine what the impact is going to be with that hard palate and the tongue. I can see a few more questions have popped up. Let's go and see what's going on there. Jay said, do you do these lives at other times? I have so many questions, but I have to go pick my girls up from school. Oh, Jade, you could always email them to us and watch them afterwards if you want. I hadn't thought of that. It is straight through school time, isn't it? I'm sorry. We don't actually. We've always had the 2:30 slot, and because it's straight after our clinic. I've literally come back out of clinic, quickly had some lunch, and then I'm doing this. So I think we might struggle. But Jade, you by all means email us with your questions and we'll reply. You know, just send us a message through and we'll get onto them, and we'll be very happy to reply to them. Or email OMVP. You know, put them through to OMVP, and I'll reply to them on here, and you can watch it at a later date. Because all these sessions are put up on YouTube for watching at another time via OMVP, who organise it, thankfully. A bit above my technical knowledge doing all of this. Claire has said, hi Alex, you may remember that with my first baby, Sebastian, now 21 months old. I do, because he's got the same name as my son. He had a 100% anterior tongue toe, which we had divided on day 9. Totally unable to latch until that point, and I ended up with a huge oversupply. What are the chances of number 2, due in May, having the same anatomy? I'm panicking about going through that struggle again with my toddler also feeding. Many thanks for any wisdom. There is always a chance, Claire, that a second child might have a tongue tie. We do quite often see it. It seems to be a familial link. I'm not going to guarantee it. We don't always, but there is a chance. But I would suggest, I mean, you've accessed us before, make sure we come and find you. As soon as you've had that baby, let us go and have a look, and we're prepared, you know, when we've had this sort of situation, then we will do an oral assessment sooner rather than later, because we know that there is a chance. So Claire, contact us, make sure the staff know that you're in and you've had your baby. Just thinking, you know, you may not be choosing to have your baby on the on delivery suite this time. You may be going somewhere else. I don't know, I can't remember exactly what happened last time with Sebastian, but you know, make sure you get hold of us. We'll find a way of checking out what's happening with this one, so that things are done much sooner and that you don't have too much of a problem. And yeah, and I know you're still feeding, because that's fabulous. So because you're also doing it too, so which is great. So yeah, I would think contact us, make sure we come and have a look, and we'll do that. Charlotte's come back and said Alicia's 23 months. Where's that time gone? Soon we'll have a 2-year-old, and we're trying to get Alicia eating different types of food. Well, I know, Charlotte, you've posted before that she's not a great one for eating different foods, but she will get there. She will get there in time. Jessica has said, my little one James is now 3, nearly 4 weeks, and has now started regurgitating milk and seems uncomfortable after, and sometimes during feeds. I tried to take burping breaks and massage his belly, but it doesn't seem to help him much. Oh, poor little thing. They do get really upset about things like that, don't they? I'm just thinking what might be going on there. I wonder what colour his poos are, Jessica. Are they still yellow, or have they maybe gone a little bit green? Because sometimes if babies aren't getting quite that balance of the watery, sugary first part of the feed and the heavier, fatty part of the latter part of the feed, if they're not getting all of that, then they're quite often on off, and they can be a bit they can be very uncomfortable. They get gassy tummies, feel very uncomfortable, and you know, no matter how much winding you do, you probably wouldn't actually be able to resolve it. Again, it goes back to, maybe we have another look at positioning attachment, check everything's going as well as it can be on that one. I know it's my go-to, but that's because it really does make a big difference. What happens with babies who are maybe getting that slight imbalance is that they take more and more food, because they're not getting that fatty, heavy milk in their tummy that says you're full. It's like being on a diet of lettuce and not ever having the lasagna to go with it. So you know, you can eat lots and lots of lettuce, but if you had your portion of lasagna, you're going to feel a bit more, you know, a bit more a bit fuller. So from that point of view, what you'll be doing then is working on ensuring that your baby gets through to the fattier part of the milk. And now that's not just time. You know, I know people talk about time. We think a feed should be anywhere between 5 and 40 minutes. That's a normal one-side feed, and then you would offer the second side. So it is quite common for some women to be sitting there feeding for a good hour and a half, you know, hour to an hour, and almost an hour and a half. So that's not uncommon. But if you've got a baby that is consistently feeding, long feeds, it might be that they're not getting there. I think you've come back up. Yes, you have. They're generally yellow, but have been green on and off too. Might be a little bit of what's going on, Jessica, that you might be getting a little bit of the baby not getting quite that balance that they need. And that's when they do tend to be taking more food than they need, because they're not getting that feeling of being full. So they keep coming back for more, and then they'll bring bits up because they've got more than they can cope with, more volume than they can cope with, and then you might get those green nappies. So, you know, again, I'm going to say what I said earlier, have a look at your positioning attachment. Think about how you're putting your baby on. I'm going to show you a picture this time. This is where it's so much easier with it's me and Naomi together. So it's thinking about, I hope this isn't going to reflect too much, it's thinking about that picture. I know this is quite a young baby and your baby's older than this, but it's thinking about that angle. You can see that that chin is hitting first, the upper lip is just going to skim the nipple, and the gap is below. You've got a lovely gap below here. And you're going to bring the baby on with pressure on the shoulders. So the hand is here, and that hand is going to push on. It's going to push that baby on. The breast stays still. The baby comes on in one movement, a nice on movement with the maybe tucked in under your elbow. So that's what we're aiming to do. If you can work on that. The example I always use when I talk about why positioning attachment can make a difference at all points, and we've all got room for to improve. I have three children, and I fed 2, and then I trained as a breastfeeding counsellor with the NCT, and I have my 3rd. I changed the way I fed my 3rd baby. He was 1 year old when I started that training, and I changed how I fed him at the age of 1, and it made a difference. Now, I'd already fed 2 babies. I'd already been feeding for a year before I got to that stage. So there is always room to improve, and a tweak of a millimetre here or a millimetre there, or keeping the breast still, can make such a difference to yours and your baby's experiences. So it is well worth just revisiting it, going, am I bringing this baby on? Is the chin leading? Is the nipple skimming, being skimmed by the upper lip? Are they literally going on in this movement? Am I bringing my baby on straight? Is the breast still? Those are the sort of things you want to be looking at to really make sure you optimise your positioning attachment. So, Jessica, I think, you'll be under the health visitors now, so the health visitors will be able to have a look and see what you're doing. Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support is another great place to go for breastfeeding support. Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe is another brilliant place. So, there is plenty of support out there. Make the most of it. I do think OBS is closed over the Easter holidays, so I think they're having a little break. So their sessions might be stopping over the week coming. I know I had an email, but I can't remember exactly the dates. But make the most of all the support that there is out there. La Leche League is also an extremely good organisation for support with breastfeeding. Jade's come back and said thank you. Melanie said, hi, I'm going back to work soon and have been breastfeeding and bottle feeding express milk for the last 6 months. I'm now not getting much from expressing, so would struggle to express enough for a full day whilst I'm at work and he's in childcare. I'm thinking of going on to formula and stopping breastfeeding now. What recommendations do you have for stopping breastfeeding? He's also becoming fussy at the breast, and that's another reason why I'd like to stop and go into bottle feeding. I'm worried about engorgement and how to dry up. So it would be a very sort of gradual process, Melanie. The fact that you're now not pumping as much, not getting so much off, that's going to be to your benefit. Is thinking about keeping your breasts comfortable. So, maybe you can, I don't know how often you're offering feeds. You must be offering feeds quite a few times, but it might be that you start skipping a feed, every other feed maybe to begin with, and see how you get on. Using your pump if you get a bit full, taking off enough to keep yourself comfortable. Many mums, even when they go back to work, like to keep the morning and night feeds, because those are times when they can really connect with their baby. It's the one thing you can do for your baby that nobody else does. So maybe try some of the other feeds and just see how you get on. And you might choose to keep your morning and night feed going, or just your night feed, or just your morning feed, and that's quite feasible. Your body can cope with that. You don't want to stop straight off cold turkey wise, which is what you're all saying, because that would cause you to be at risk of engorgement and mastitis. So I think have your pump handy, see how you get on, and start, maybe you can start with giving, when you're pumping, you would give you that milk anyway first off in the bottle feeding. But your baby's already used to bottle feeding, which is great, because that can often be a challenge when mums are going back to work and they if the baby hasn't taken a bottle, but you've overcome that first hurdle. So I think it'll be, if you can approach it fairly gradually. You say soon, I don't know when soon is that you mean, but gradually, maybe dropping every other feed and beginning to up the bottle feeds that you're doing. Then use your milk, obviously, as I mentioned, but being aware of your breasts. If you're feeling full, take off enough to make yourself comfortable and no more. You don't want to keep trying to remove everything you can get off, because that will just perpetuate your milk supply. So just take off enough until you're comfortable and you go, okay, that's right. You might have to pump sooner, depending on how your supply is going, sooner than you would have done normally, but that's not going to be for very long. There's a protein that builds up in your breast when your breast is full, and it's known as feedback inhibitor of lactation, FIL. So by just taking off enough to make yourself comfortable, there will be a bit of fill in your breast, and over a matter of a few days, weeks, that will start to cut your supply down and bring it down. So a gradual process of maybe dropping the odd feed and then reducing how much you're pumping, and you'll get to the point where you hopefully you'll be able to stop breastfeeding entirely if that's your choice. But as I say, many mums like to carry on with one or two feeds in a day, even when they've gone back to work, because it is feasible. I think mums do manage it. We'll see how you get on. You mentioned formula, and this is a perfect opportunity to mention, I don't know if you've already looked at formulas, but just to say to anybody listening, and to you particularly, formulas are all the same. They have to meet UK standards. So they are regulated on what's in them. The adverts that you see on television, when they claim that they've got this and that, if they had to be in there, they would be in all of them. So don't feel you have to buy on price. Don't feel you have to buy a brand name. All the formulas will help your baby to grow just as well. So you can buy an own brand supermarket version versus a very well-known brand. Save yourself a lot of money by buying the own brand supermarket, and your baby will get just as good nutrition. Your baby will thrive just the same. So don't feel obliged to go and buy an expensive brand. You're not buying better. The way that I always explain it is that when you can go into the supermarket and buy paracetamol, you can buy paracetamol that's Sainsbury's own or Tesco's own or whichever supermarket you shop in, or you can buy a branded paracetamol. Well, they're both paracetamol and they will do exactly the same job. So it's the same with formula milks. And the other thing to say is that you only need first stage formula milk. So formula milk for the whole of the first year is the first stage formula milk. When you read about growing up milks, follow on milks, hungrier baby milks, sleep tight milks, they're all marketing. They're all marketing ploys to get you to buy their products. You don't need them. First stage formula milk of any brand is exactly what your baby needs for the first year of life, and you can save your pennies and buy other things that you might enjoy more, and your baby will grow just as well. So I hope that helps with regard to thinking about formula milks going forward. If you're having problems, Melanie, with reducing your supply, then do get in touch. Again, La Leche League is a very good organisation. All the infant feeding sort of organisations, OBS, Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe, La Leche League and us, we will support you as much with starting as stopping, or stopping as starting. We're here to support you in whatever decision you make. We're just delighted that your baby gets any breast milk, and that's lovely. Your baby will have had 6 months worth, which is brilliant. Claire has heard that she's going to be on Delivery Suite. I will be able to, if you're not, I will be bleeping you. Thanks so much. Perfect. Make sure you do. Make sure you get hold of us, and we will come hightailing down and come and meet number 2. We're looking forward to it. So me and the team. Jessica has said, generally yellow but have been green on off. Yes, I saw that, didn't I? Jessica said, this sounds about right. As he goes through phases of going on and off the breast, I'll video myself and check positioning. Thanks so much. Fabulous, Jessica. Have a go, because you may not even need to get anyone else to have a look. You can have a look and then you'll see what's happening. Charlotte has said, I used to go to Aldi milk formula and always remember food for one is just for the fun. Yes, that's true. So food before one is just for fun. So anyone who's got a baby that's approaching 6 months, and that's appropriate to you too. Melanie, sorry, I was just trying to remember your name, I'm so sorry. Melanie, is that when you are beginning to introduce complementary foods at 6 months, remember the main nutrition is still coming from milk, whether that's breast milk or formula milk. Your baby's main nutrition is still going to be milk for the first year of life. So you would always start with a feed, as in a milk feed, so breast or bottle, and then offer complementary foods. There are different ways of approaching complementary foods. So it can be baby-led weaning, where you put things in front of the baby. There can be, that they can pick up and hold. It's recommended that they're nice and colourful, that they're the right texture for the baby. There's loads of information out there about it. Alternatively, some people prefer to go the puree route, but because we're weaning babies now at 6 months, much later than we used to, actually they don't really need puree in the same way. When babies were being weaned, now totally against recommendations, at 3 months they couldn't have coped with lumps. Now they can cope perfectly well, because they've got the anatomy, they've got the maturity to cope with lumps and bumps, of food. So whether it's a stick of something in their hands, or stuff that you've put on on their tray for them to help, and they have the coordination at 6 months as well to go from hand to mouth, which is great. So that's what we mean by food before one is just for fun. They're learning about food, they're learning about how to get it to their mouth, they're learning about the texture of it, they're enjoying the colours. And it's much more about that experience as opposed to nutrition. Nutrition still comes from all the milk that they're getting. If you want to look at really good information about complementary foods and also formula milks, First Steps Nutrition, you can just look it up on Google. First Steps Nutrition. It's a fantastic website, and it has loads of information that's absolutely brilliant for parents, but it's also great for us as health professionals. It's all evidence-based, it's researched, and it has some fantastic information on there about food, the different sorts of complementary foods, and about all the different formulas that are available. So well worth a look. Right. Heba has said, good afternoon, what are the best foods to start a baby on when starting solids at 6 months? I've heard that they have low iron levels at this point, so would I need to supplement them in any way? So it is thought that iron levels are depleted, though it is, we talk about iron-rich foods, and so green leafy vegetables are good ones. I'm just looking to see, we used to have complementary foods leaflet in here. I'm just looking to see if I got it. The problem with this box is we all use it and things go missing. So tends to be, I'll just have a quick, I'm going to pull it up. That's one of the reasons I have my laptop. Let me just see if I can find it. PHE. So as I said, First Steps Nutrition is a really, in fact that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to First Steps Nutrition because that is such a good website. And let's just have a quick look at what she's got on there. Your health visitor is your really the main go-to person when it comes to complementary foods, moving on to solid foods at 6 months. Let's have a quick peek and see what she's got here. So children foods. So she does a whole section. It says commercial baby foods marketed in the UK, milk and milk drinks marketed for babies 1 to 4 in the UK. So let's have a look, see what she's got. So there's a whole section on that there. Let's just see. I'm sure there's a lot of information about it. Eating well resources might be where we want to go. Infants and new mums eating well. So I'm just having a quick look to see what they've got here. There's a whole section on eating well for new mums, which you might be interested in. So there's a lovely leaflet called Eating Well, the First Year, a guide to introducing solid foods and eating well up to the baby's first birthday. And it's got a lovely picture with, I can turn it around and just see if you can see it and hope it works. Sometimes it gets a bit pixelated like that. But that's the leaflet. It will be round the wrong way, I know, I'm sorry. But it's got a lovely little picture. It's got a lovely picture of a bowl with 3 carrot sticks in it and some quite lumpy sort of baby food in it as well. So it talks about, so this guide provides information and practical advice on introducing solid foods to babies with recipes and photos to show the sorts of foods and amount of foods that will give them a good start on their eating journey. The information is in line with current policy in the UK and provides a pictorial guide which can be used to support families in the first year of their baby's lives. So I'd highly recommend this leaflet. It's called Eating Well, the First Year, and it's on the First Steps Nutrition website. So that would be well worth having a look at. And having a look and see, have a look at that, Heba. That would answer, I think, all your questions. And it's obviously going to look at both the baby-led weaning, where babies are given their opportunity to choose their own foods from an array of foods that you might give them, and more of a more puree style, but I say they're quite lumpy purees. So Heba, I'm going to signpost you to First Steps Nutrition and that lovely leaflet, Eating Well, the First Year. Have a look at that. And as I said, the health visitors are your other person to go to. Melanie's come back. Thank you. He's still a pickle with a bottle sometimes. It's a case of persevering. He'll take it if he's hungry enough, and I'm not around as the easy option. That's perfect, as I'd like to try and do a night morning feed. I'd be sad to give up completely. I thought that might be the case. So if I weren't to feed in the daytime, it won't affect my supply in the evening. We started giving him some puree at 4.5 months as he was showing signs of interest. He loves a bit of finger food too. Okay, just to bear in mind that any foods that baby get before 6 months, they actually don't have the enzymes to break it down, which is why we tend to say try and keep off till 6 months, because what you do is displace milk, and this is what was happening in the past. Babies didn't have the maturity of the gut to break the foods down, and actually what they were getting fed up of, they're being fed food that meant they didn't take as much milk, and actually growth would slow down. So the recommendation is usually to try and hold off as much as you can to 6 months. But the odd, obviously you've been doing it, and hopefully, things have been fine. But I would say definitely, if you would love to keep up, a couple of feeds a day, your body copes. There will be many mums out there, who will say to you that that's what they managed to do. Many mums that we come across manage to do that, and it's so lovely, because it's a big wrench when you hand your baby over to someone else to go back to work, when it's been you and you alone. And this is the one thing that the two of you will do together that no one else can help. So we've got building work going on up here. We're going to hear the drill going. So there you go, Melanie. So I think there's lots of hope that you can do that. Right, I'm just going to refresh the page, because I thought I saw another question come up. I can't see it now. Nope, I think that's it for the moment. So I'm just going to have another look at the First Steps Nutrition website, because I say it's got some fantastic stuff on here. As I said, it's got stuff for mums, so eating well in the first year, but it's also got for those of you that haven't yet had your babies, it's got a section about eating well in pregnancy, so that might be well worth having a look at. So there's a lovely leaflet called Eating Well for a Healthy Pregnancy, a Practical Guide. This guide aims to enable health professionals to support pregnant women, so there's no reason why you couldn't look at it too. Support pregnant women to understand their food and nutrition needs in pregnancy. It includes recipes and meal ideas, and can sit alongside other local public health guidance to provide a practical explanation of what eating well looks like. So that might be worth having a peek at and seeing what is on there. I'm just going to go onto their publications page, because they do have quite a lot of stuff. They've got reports. No, that's just their reports. I don't think we want that. It's a bit dry, but the leaflets are lovely. So as I said, you'll know you're on the right page because it will look like this. It's got a pear at the top. If you look, that says First Steps Nutrition, and then you can see it's got lots of different foods, and I think that's your baby-led weaning food there actually. So there you go. So well worth having a look at. Right. Have we got any other questions? Last week you kept me busy for the whole hour, and it was lovely, keeping me going. So this is the difference now. When we first started in COVID, we were inundated with questions because people had nowhere else to go. I mean, now obviously you've got more choices. You can lead slightly more normal life, which is lovely. And I think there's quite a few of you, like Claire, who've had babies already, who spent most of the first year of their, well, more than, their babies were born either right at the beginning of lockdown or in lockdown, and are now experiencing a really different situation where they can get out, access support, go to get face-to-face support, which was not happening. We even were struggling to get babies weighed, which was really tough. We had situations where health visitors and other people were leaving weighing scales on mothers' doorsteps, so mums would bring the scales in, weigh their babies, and then put the scales back on the doorstep, so that the baby could be weighed, because we were struggling to get babies weighed, which was really, really challenging. And when COVID first hit, we were not able to run face-to-face support, and right through to September 2020, which was a really long time, and we know for many mums that was a very difficult time. So we did try and give as much support as we could on the wards before mothers went home. But anyone who's been on recently will know it's been extremely busy, and we're trying to give as much help as we can. All right, I can see another question's popped up. Let's just see. Louise has put a question. Thank you, Louise. Hi, I'm expecting my next child in July. My son is turning 3 this month, and I just wondered if it would be safe to use the same bottles, plastic Tommy Tippy ones, for our second baby, or if it's recommended to get new ones. I don't think there's any problem with them as long as they're not scratched or cracked. I think that's absolutely fine to reuse them. You know, were you formula feeding or breastfeeding? Obviously, you know, formula feeding things need to be sterilised. Breastfeeding equipment only needs to be washed, because breast milk is a live product and it fights bacteria. So we know that you know, if you're breastfeeding or pumping, that equipment only needs to be washed in hot soapy water, rinsed in hot water, and dried with a clean tea towel or clean paper towel. But if you're formula feeding, then because that's an inert liquid, then unfortunately, you know, bacteria can proliferate much more. In which case, everything should be sterilised. So the bottles, the teats should all be sterilised. So yeah, from that point of view, I think there shouldn't be a problem unless there's any damage to them. They should be fine. So, Alice has come on. Hi Alex, hope you're well. Iris is almost 6 months. Wow. And we're still managing to breastfeed thanks to all your support. She still won't take a bottle at all, and I'm due some surgery, so may need to be away from her. I was thinking of trying a cup. Just getting it to load the rest. Trying a cup. I'm trying to get it to load the rest of your question, but it doesn't want to. Load. Come on. I've only got the... Okay, I think it's gone on a go slow. Bear with me. I'll retry it. I'm going to have to refresh the page. Right, great, got it on now. I was thinking of trying a cup rather than the bottle. Are there any you'd recommend people have more success with? Thank you. To be honest, it's going to be trial and error with a cup, but yeah, I mean, you can have a chat with your friends, see which ones maybe they've used if you know somebody's on that. There's absolutely no reason why you can't go on to a cup when a baby gets to 6 months. The ones that have been around for a long time are things like the Doidy cup. That's the only one I can think of. There used to be an Avent soft spout one which worked really well, but I'm not sure if they make that one anymore, but it's worth having a look and just see have a look and see what there is around, and you know, and practicing, getting a bit of practice going, you know, little bits, no pressure. Remember this whole thing about, you know, we talk about it a lot when we're supporting mothers with breastfeeding, and if the things aren't going straight forward, is keep it positive. You know, don't make Iris upset about it. Make it sure it's a bit of a game, it's fun, she enjoys it. And I'm sure you would do all of that anyway, but you know, it's not trying to make her do it, but just make her think it's fun and do it that way. So yeah, maybe a Doidy, maybe see if you can get a soft spout one for her to go on to. But as you say, you don't need to use a bottle when the baby's got to 6 months. But how amazing, baby 6 months, well done you. That's fantastic. And you know, that's what we talk about, exclusive breastfeeding of the first 6 months gives your babies the best health outcomes. It really does. It's such a great start for your baby and for you. As I mentioned earlier, it does so many good things for you too. Louise has come on. Thank you. Did not know about the not needing to sterilise for breastfeeding, so good to know, but have sterilising kits, so fab. Thank you. Yep, and anybody else is watching, I mean, we have so many of our mums who, and because of course we have a warped view, because the mothers that we meet are the ones that are having problems. So many of our mums are having to express, either to secure their milk supply because they're trying to push it up, or because the baby's not attaching. So, you know, it might be that the baby's on special care, it might be that the baby's not going to the breast, you know, for whatever reason they're having to express. Knowing that you don't have to sterilise makes a huge difference. The one exception in that, and the list that I've just given you, is if you have a baby that's on the special care baby unit, we could think the reason they're there is because they've got, you know, they may be a bit more vulnerable, and those babies we would normally recommend sterilising the equipment. But healthy term babies do not need the equipment to be sterilised. They can cope, because the breast milk is this fantastic live vibrant product that will help fight off bacteria. So yeah, it saves a lot of time. So mums who are pumping might choose to pump and then pop the kits in a clean plastic bag or a Tupperware. And if they're going to pump in a short period of time, remember your milk is fine at room temperature for 6 hours, then they're going to pump in a short period of time, use the pump kits again, and then wash them. They don't even have to wash them every time they use them, because the milk's fine at room temperature for up to 6 hours. And that can be really, really liberating for people who are having to pump, you know, a minimum of 8 times in 24 hours, which is really hard work. It's very time consuming, and it can be the thing that, you know, puts mothers off in the end, because I know moms who are pumping long term find it really challenging. Right, I think I've covered all those questions. Thank you very much. I hope you've got a few more for me. I've got a few more minutes before I need to sign off. But, so one of the things that I've been involved in is the Ready for Parenthood. I don't know if any of you have heard about Ready for Parenthood. It's a social media campaign that is running in the south of the country. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Again, it's going to be back to front, which is always the problem with this. And I was asked if I could get some parents who might be happy to have a chat about feeding. Now, as in breastfeeding, so it's to do a video. So it would be a case of, you know, doing a bit of filming, talking to you about what your feeding experience was like, not necessarily having to feed on camera, but to talk about your feeding experience. So, you know, it would be perfect for someone on here who maybe it didn't go particularly well in the beginning, but things have got a little bit better later, and you know, you got through your problems, and that would be the sort of perfect scenario. So if any of you that are watching have been in that situation, I can think of a few names that have popped up today already. If you thought you might like to be part of a video, and it could be you and your partner, and you were happy to be filmed, then I would love to hear from you, because we're looking for people to be in a couple of videos about their feeding experiences. So this is the campaign. I'll pick it up and I'll say, unfortunately, it's going to be back to front. Some of you might have seen it coming up. It's called Are You Ready for Parenthood? So I know it's going to be back to front, and I'm sorry about that. But it's a whole section, and every month they have different topics. So they've talked about safer sleep, they've talked about infant feeding, they've talked about safety. Let's just have a look and see if I can find a bit more about it. So, and they've had a few videos go up as well, and this is what they were asking for. They would like to have a video talking to someone about their feeding experience. The end video will only be a couple of minutes long, so quite short, but obviously when you're doing filming like that, they normally film for a little bit longer to be able to edit it and get the best bits. So what they say is each month our campaign will focus on a different topic of being a parent, and this page will develop throughout the campaign period as we provide a range of information and links to useful organisations that can help you. Click on the images below for further information. So those of you out there, you know, who are listening, you might like to sign up for it, and you can get it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, so all your usual places it's available. So it's had sections on vaccinations, infant feeding, healthy living, safer sleep and crying, and it's going to continue for the next few months with different topics each time, which you might find really useful. So there'll be links to places to access information from. So it's to support what you're already getting from your midwives and from your health visitors. So we'll give you some support on that. Right, well, I think we might finish a little early today, so seeing as we've got no more questions. Just like to say a huge thank you to all of you that have put questions up, and please join me next week and have a think about some lovely questions. Tell your friends about it, because it's quite an easy way of getting the questions, get your questions answered without having to make a telephone call or whatever. And as I say, if you are watching it and haven't seen these before, they're all on YouTube. You can access them via the OMVP website, and they're there. We also have a series of 7 videos that covers all sorts of aspects to do with infant feeding, made by us as a team. Skin to skin, responsive bottle feeding, positioning and attachment, how do you know your baby's getting enough milk, all the things that you probably felt you needed to know, and they're there in handy videos that you can access on our infant feeding webpage. That's OUH maternity feeding. Well, thank you very much one and all. I'm going to sign off now, seeing as we've got no more questions, and I'll see you next week. Please bombard me with questions next week though.